Welcome back to Split Decision Episode 2. Today we'll take a look back at UFC Jacksonville from this past weekend. We'll take a look ahead to UFC Vegas 76. We'll also introduce a couple of new segments as we still try to figure everything out. Thank you for listening, and let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the famous words of Bruce Buffer, this is the moment you've all been waiting for. The main event. At 145 pounds, Josh Emmett versus Ilia Topuria. What do you think of this fight, Christian?
I mean, this actually ended up winning Fight of the Night, according to the UFC. It was a great fight, but honestly, it was really Ilia Topuria showing off his skills, showing he's for real, showing he's a contender. Josh Emmett, he landed a few big punches, but this was Ilia Topuria's show. He outboxed him. He bloodied him up. He looked good in this fight, and I think he solidified himself that he is a contender currently and probably a future champ. He looked that good.
Yeah, I definitely agree. On this fight, we both picked Topuria, El Matador, but more importantly, he really showed why he's making his name in the UFC right now. My pre-fight notes for this one said that in order for Emmett to win, he needed to attack heavy and he needed to attack often. He did start doing that in the 4th and 5th round, but it was just too little too late when he was already broken and battered.
He started the first minute or two of the fight off heavy, but then it was just obvious. Topuria was just better than him.
Man, that straight jab from Topuria just really hurt him.
That jab destroyed his eye.
Yeah, it completely closed, bleeding most of the fight. It's crazy that Emmett, at his age, with 38, 39 years old, was still able to go to decision through 5 full rounds.
Props to Josh Emmett. He showed his chin, much like Marvin Vettori did last week. I mean, there were plenty of opportunities for Josh Emmett just to give up, and he did not. He kept fighting. Like I said, all the way to the 5th round, he was swinging back, and he had a few shots where he made Topuria respect him, but it just wasn't enough.
Oh, definitely. Look, at the end of the fight, between the 4th and 5th round, the doctors actually came in and checked Emmett out to make sure that he...
They were trying... At that point, the doctor, I think he was trying to make up for the eye for Tafa previously.
Okay, well, forgive me for this one. I'm going to say he was Keith Petersoning.
So he was just like, you want to stop it? He wanted to stop it, and Josh Emmett was like, no, I'm not stopping.
No, bro, I've got 5 minutes left of...
I've made it this far, and I'm one punch away from I have the power to knock this dude out if I land the right punch.
Yeah, I was kind of... Even at the end of the 5th round, I knew the outcome.
There were a couple times where it would hit Topuria, and he'd be like, whoa.
He was like, whoa, there's
a little much right.
Right, there's a lot of power here.
Yeah. But, I mean, Topuria...
How'd you have that one scored?
I know some of the... One judge had it 50-42.
One judge had it 50-44.
I had it 50-45. I don't think any of them were 10-8 rounds. I just think it was solid Topuria winning every round.
Yeah, 49-45 is a little steep, for scoring. I don't think Emmett did that much to garner enough points to get all that. But I will say it was definitely worth the fight. I lost my first bet of the night on this fight.
I did as well. I had Topuria by TKO or KO.
I had Topuria.
And he was so close in that 4th round.
He really was.
Right at the end, the bell saved
30-second ground and pound.
Bell saved Emmett, and then props to him. He was able to recover in that 5th round a little bit.
I had, on this one, I had Topuria and the under 1.5 rounds. I really thought that...
I mean, he's a guy that does knock people out early, or finishes fight early.
Right, yeah.
But again, that's just a testament to Josh Emmett's toughness.
Yeah. So look, overall, that's 2 fight weeks in a row of just really stellar cards. And listen, both of them were on ESPN Plus for free.
This one was on ESPN and ABC for free.
Yeah, you're right.
This was ABC like prime time.
You're right. This was 10:30 in the morning until about 4:50, 5 o'clock our time.
Central U.S. time, correct.
Yeah, definitely well worth the money. Go check it out on ESPN for a rewatch. There's some heavy knockouts, some good submissions. It's definitely well worth your viewing time.
Now we go to Amanda Ribas, Macy Barbara, in what might be the fight of the night. at 125 strawweight division for the women. This was a great fight. There was blood. There was ground game. There was punches. There were kicks. There was a finish. Macy Barber looked great. Amanda Ribas looked tough. She didn't look horrible. But, man, Macy Barber looked great in this fight.
Is that, 5 straight wins for Barber?
5 straight wins. She started off undefeated, had a couple losses. Everybody was down on her. She was still very young.
Right.
And now she's won 5 straight, and she's the legitimate contender.
So, listen, with Macy Barber, this was one of our picks for the night, so we got it right. Woohoo to us. But
won some money on her.
More importantly, Macy Barber, dude, so she broke Ribas's nose, I don't know, 2 minutes into the fight.
Oh, yeah.
And as soon as that happened, it was like a shark in the water, shark smelling blood. As soon as that happened, she just started attacking. And you know what? She finished it in round 2.
She was vicious on the feet. She was beating her up on the ground. Some vicious ground and pound. I mean, Macy Barber just looked so good in this fight. If she continues improving like this, she's definitely a contender at the strawweight division 125.
Yeah, we said 10-9 first round Barber. Second round was going 10-9.
And you know who her last loss is against?
Who's that?
The current champ, Grassos.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So she wants that fight. That's a storyline. So, I mean, she's honestly only a couple wins away, and she's in for the title shot. Yeah, she's still the champ.
I will say, on this fight specifically, Keith Peterson did have a little bit of redemption. He gave Ribas every single attempt to fight back. He did not call this fight early. There was no false tapping.
In Keith's defense, he made up for himself at the end of last week's card.
Yeah. I'm just it's worth airing it out there.
We don't need to go after my guy Keith.
Oh, then now he's your guy, Keith.
Maybe he likes a little whiskey and cigarettes. Who doesn't?
Once again, I know I said this last week. I still don't get the cigarette thing.
Yeah,
if you like cigarettes, just smoke cigarettes.
What are you, Nancy Reagan? Cigarettes make you a bad person? You think cigarettes make people bad people?
I'm not saying cigarettes don't make you a bad person, though.
I'm not saying all people that smoke cigarettes are bad, but all bad people smoke cigarettes.
Right. So for the first heavyweight bout of the night, well, first and only, I should say, when you see Justin Tafa walk into a fight, you really do expect the fight to be over in under a minute.
And then you look at the other dude.
Listen, this was one of the most hyped fights moving into the night. And listen, it went from, I don't know any way to say this cleanly, but I'm gonna just go for it. It went from a very hyped fight, and in the first minute of the fight, it made me feel like when Bilal Muhammad was screaming on the canvas when he got his eye poke.
Yeah, it was
Austin Lane's full finger went into Justin Tafa's eye to the point where his eyeball was bleeding. It swelled up immediately. Listen, Justin Tafa took the, 4.5 minutes of time, and the doctors were almost willing to let him fight.
Yeah, it was crazy that you could actually hear what the doctor was saying to the ref.
Yeah.
At one point, the ref told the doctor, "You're the doctor. You tell me if he can fight or not."
Yeah, he's saying, I can only see out of one eyeball. When you pull my eyeball open, I can still see nothing. And guess what the doctor was saying? Well,
that should be an immediate. Go? I know it sucks, but that's an immediate stop of the fight if you say you can't see.
Right, and I also think the doctor should probably be checked for a little wager on the top of knockout. I
don't know. It's Florida. You never know. He might just be a wacky doctor.
One of my saving grace, which I'll call it the saving grace now just because I lost for the main event.
And it was a no contest, by the way.
Right, that was actually what I was about to say. Because it was a no contest, my bet was voided. So I don't really have anything to be upset about, although I'm upset that I didn't get to see a good fight.
I know Lane's the one that poked him in the eye, but it kind of sucks for him too. UFC debut in his hometown. He's from Jacksonville. He played for the Jaguars. Right. In his hometown, and then he had a couple good body kicks, and then immediately just pokes him in the eye.
Yeah. It's definitely not how anybody wanted to end the fight, but sometimes, you know, there are no win, losers, or draw. There's just a no contest.
Okay, next fight: Gabriel Santos, David Onama. This this was a pretty good fight. If you missed it, this is definitely one to go rewatch. Uh, Onama came in a pretty hefty underdog. Not hefty, but
I think it was like plus 260 or
yeah,
something
plus
like that.
260. So it was a good size. You could make some money, pretty good value. Santos the favorite. Santos winning pretty much the whole fight. Won the first round. Had some crazy armbar attempts. Went to the second round. He was winning the second round, pretty much the whole second round, and then right towards the end, Onama, the uppercut from fucking hell,
Really?
knocked him out cold. Head bounced on the floor. It was crazy. It was out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's actually I can confirm. I've already put that on the socials. That knockout was crazy. I didn't get to watch the fight live or went and rewatched, the highlights from that round. Dude, both them boys out there throwing some serious power. 10-9 Santos first round,
It was looking like another 10-9 second round.
and then just
And
Sleepsville, USA.
It was crazy. And that Santos came into the UFC 10-0, a high prospect. He's now 0-2, split decision loss, and then a straight up knockout loss. So he's got to regroup and try to figure this out.
So where does that leave Onama moving forward?
Onama 11-2 now. He was 10-2 coming in.
Right?
I mean, that's a good win for him. I don't think he's ready for a ranked opponent yet, but he's close. I think he's a win away from a ranked opponent, and then once you get a ranked opponent, you just move up the rankings from there.
Yeah, it's really make or break once you get that first top 15 spot, especially with a division like 145. Those guys in the 145, 155 divisions, man, it's like every single guy in there can scrap. Half the guys aren't worried about wrestling. They're just walking out there with sheer knockout power just every day of the week.
Definitely two of the deeper divisions. Some divisions when you get into the lower rankings, like 10 to 15, it's good guys, but it's not the best guys. In 145 and 155, if you're ranked, you're a straight up killer.
Yeah.
You're very skilled.
As they say, there are levels to this.
There's levels to this. A nice win from Onama, though. Big underdog. He was losing the fight. I think this is a nice win for him.
This 185 bout between Brendan Allen and Bruno Silva, I think it was pretty much destined to be just a slaughter fest, huh? I don't think Silva has recorded a takedown or a takedown attempt when he wasn't in danger in the last, 3 fights.
I mean, this fight, these guys went after it. From the get-go, they were swinging. They were hitting each other. At one point, it looked like Allen was going to get knocked out. Another point, it looked like Silva was going to get knocked out. Then Silva got knocked to the ground. And I had a feeling once it got to the ground and Allen got his back, he's known for the rear naked choke. He went and got the rear naked choke. That's his 3rd straight rear naked choke finish.
That's
and his
crazy.
5th straight win.
That is absolutely crazy.
Covington, Louisiana native, by the way. Shout out.
Shout out Louisiana. One of the things I'd like to say, I wrote down as one of my pre-fight notes on this one when we were talking, Wednesday of last week? Or Wednesday of this past week? Man, I put that Brandon Allen is more conservative, and that's going to cause him to win this fight. I know we already locked it in as a pick and all that, and yeah, we did both win the pick, but I thought early on in this week that his ability to be conservative was going to help him win, and honestly, that's kind of what we saw.
I wouldn't call that fight conservative, though. Both these guys were out there swinging, getting hit. I think this was a very unconservative fight.
He chose his time to finish, right? He conserved his energy.
He had a little bit of patience.
Right.
But, I mean, he was getting hit. He was getting pieced up a little bit. He
Yeah.
had to finish him then because then he might have got finished.
It did not make me feel, as soon as the fight started, it didn't make me feel like it was going to be a long fight at all.
He mentioned Adesanya after the fight because he 5 straight wins. He's moving up the rankings.
Yeah.
And if he wins a couple more fights, he's definitely for Adesanya. He'll definitely get that fight. But if Silva, he's got to shore up his defense if he wants to get to the next level, I think. Because anybody like he can't get hit like that by Adesanya, by Whitaker, by Cannonier, by Vittori, the same guys in his division. So he's got to shore up his defense. But he is only 27 years old. He's had a lot of fights in the UFC. This is a dude that he's on the up and up.
Right. One of the things we saw in this fight was one of the deepest rear naked chokes I've ever seen.
Oh, he tapped very quickly, huh? It was like right when he got it, Silva was like, all right.
Dude, his arms were completely around this guy's throat. It was crazy. Very good fight. I mean, it stopped in the first round, so I'm sure I have it. It's probably already on social media, so if you just check out our Instagram or TikTok, you can probably just watch the whole knockout.
Yeah, again, a first round rear naked choke finish, Brendan Allen over Silva.
With a lot of damage dealt previous.
Exciting fight.
All right. And now Rebetsky versus Radzhabov. My apologies if I got those names incorrect. One thing I didn't get incorrect on this fight was going to be our pick.
Yeah, I think we both had Rebetsky, right?
Right. And that moves us pretty solid on the day, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, we did pretty well. Honestly,
only getting two wrong. I really think if the Tafa fight would have gone through all the way, we would have, gotten that one right. But only getting two wrong on the day is pretty solid.
Yeah, that was a tough one, but I agree.
Honestly, this fight, I know it went down kind of how we expected.
Old Jaguar Paul got the L. I'm sorry.
Jaguar Paul. That's such a ridiculous name, right?
It really is, and he really took the L on this one.
So
I'm not sure he's going to be able to walk. He's definitely not able to walk right now. Both of his legs got fucked up.
Dude, both legs. Not only do you try to recover, but as soon as he realizes you can't stand,
oh, he's just chopping those legs down.
Right, he just goes to the other side.
What I love that Rebetsky did, he realized he had one leg fucked up, and then he turned then he focused on the exact opposite leg. Then it's like, where's this dude gonna go?
Right,
he's not gonna be able to go anywhere. Once he did that, and he really Razvadov, how you say his name?
Radzhabov. Yeah, it's like R-A-D.
He was already losing. Yeah. Then he was immobile, and then it was just a matter of time after that. And
yeah, it's one of those things where it's not like he curled up and just admitted defeat, but he physically just couldn't walk anymore. When you can't put weight on your own legs, I don't know if you've ever been able to do that. I've never broken a leg bone, but I couldn't imagine being able to fight.
Yeah, it's like if you do heavy squats one day and you haven't done them in a while, times a million.
Right.
So you could just imagine how bad the dude's legs felt.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine.
And yeah, I wasn't trying to insinuate that the dude quit or anything. He was just outclassed, and there was nothing he could do. And like you said, it doesn't matter how bad you want it. If you physically can't walk, can't move your legs very well in a fight like that against a guy like that, Rebetsky, that was his 15th straight win. So this dude wins.
Yeah, absolutely. And for what it's worth, even without the TKO, I did have Rebetsky win in the first round 10-9.
Yeah, I did as well. Did you see after the fight, during the interview, did you get a chance to listen to it?
No, I didn't actually. What did he say?
He broke his foot from kicking the other guy's leg so much.
So Rebetsky broke his foot from kicking Razvadov's leg?
Yes. Because DC brought it up. DC's like, it looks like your foot's broken. He's like, yeah, from all the kicks.
That's funny.
It was very funny.
Man, good for him. Being brutal and happy at the same time. 15-win streak.
I mean, 15-win streak, I think that'll make a lot of people happy. That's impressive, too.
Did he call anybody out?
I don't remember. I think this is only his second UFC fight, so I think he just called for a ranked opponent, if I'm not mistaken.
Ranked opponent, okay. Well, after what I've seen today, I'll give him whatever he wants.
I think he's 18-1 as a start.
He is 18-1, yeah.
So, I mean, 2-0 UFC. He's definitely moving up. He pretty dominantly won this fight, so you would think he would move up in competition.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see Rebetsky fight again.
Yeah, he's definitely one. The next time I see his name on a fight card, it's going to be one to circle, and we're definitely going to highlight that one.
Absolutely.
All right, so now we move on to Tabitha Ritchie, Jillian Robertson. This was a strawweight bout on the prelims. And this, honestly, this was a very good performance from Tabitha Ritchie. She came in. I had her winning every round, all 3 rounds. She was good on the feet. She was good on the ground. This was a solid performance from her, and really, I think, kind of elevated her. Elevated her to the next level. She's climbing that ladder. This was a step she had to take, and she took this step pretty easy. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I had Richie winning 10-9 all 3 rounds as well. Um, Basically, what happened here is Robertson got outclassed. She was slower. She had less technique, unfortunately. Um, she definitely wasn't out for the count the whole fight. She had moments. She did throw some decent punches. She did shoot sometimes, defend sometimes, but Richie just completely overpowered her, man.
Yeah, Robertson, she's known as getting submissions, and Richie, she kind of just didn't let her get close to any submissions. She would take her down. She was smart. She would not get in her guard. She knew that was the only path to victory, and she didn't put herself in situations where she was gonna get subbed. And she was obviously better on the feet, like you said.
Right.
She kind of dominated. That's 4 straight wins now for Richie. So as I said, she's moving up that ladder. She's coming close to being a legitimate contender in the strawweight division.
Yeah, one of the things I'll actually like to point out about Richie and Robertson is the complete difference in style for tonight. Richie walked out circling the entire fight. Robertson, she was walking people. She was trying to walk Richie down, right? She was just walking straight down the middle, trying to pick her takedown, and that's actually kind of what I wrote down in my pre-fight notes. Is even though both of them are coming off a submission victory, I wrote that Robertson needs to get Richie to the ground to win the fight, and with Richie's takedown defense, she was just too dominant.
Yeah, like you said, she obviously had the better footwork. She was moving around. Robertson kind of, I'm not going to say stood still, but a lot easier to hit. I mean, you can see why Richie has 4 straight wins now. Though she's on the up and up.
All right, so this weekend we have UFC Vegas 76. I think the first fight we agreed that we were going to take a look at was going to be Kevin, the Motown Phenom Lee, versus, my apologies in advance, Renat Gladiator Retnidov. I'm sorry again.
Yeah, we're going to refer to him as Gladiator from here on out, or Renat.
Yeah, that makes it a lot easier on me.
But this is the featured prelim of the bout, so it's the last prelim before the main event. Kevin Lee, his return to the UFC after a 1-fight hiatus where he fought an old and fat and kind of chubby Diego Sanchez to a unanimous decision at least.
Right. I got one question. So if you're Kevin Lee, now I couldn't beat Kevin Lee. He'd beat the bricks off of me. Well, but if you're Kevin Lee,
we don't need that. They would all beat the brakes off of us, so go ahead.
Right. If you're Kevin Lee and you got to take a 40-year-old Diego Sanchez to decision, I mean, yes, it was unanimous, whatever. Does that mean Gladiator is just going to win?
I mean, Kevin Lee in the UFC's lost 4 out of his last 5. My boy Renat, 19 straight wins, 2-0 UFC. He has only had decision wins in the UFC, though. He's in his 2 wins.
Part of that makes me feel like it's going to be, or it not is, but it could be that typical different caliber going from a different league to the UFC.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to be a filling out process.
Yeah. So this, but he did win the first 2 by unanimous decisions.
And Brian Battle, his last one, who's a pretty good guy from the last class of Ultimate Fighter.
Right. Honestly, on this one, with my pick, I'm going to take the Gladiator.
I agree. I think he's 20-1 coming in. We didn't even say that. His career's like on the rise. I don't want to say Kevin Lee's like decline, but like He's not rising up like Renat is.
Do you have Renat's age?
Renat's 31. Kevin
30.
Lee's 30. So he's still like, he's right into his prime of fighting career. He's
Yeah.
right there.
At 20-1, I definitely want to lock that in as one of my picks for the week for sure.
I agree. I got Renat the Gladiator. Probably by unanimous decision, but I got him in the fight.
Okay, so opening up the main card at 185 pounds in the middleweight division, we have Bruno the Hulk Ferreira versus. Now it's unfortunate for me. I have to say apologies again, but Nursultan Black Ruziboev.
What a nickname.
Yep. So we have the Hulk versus Black.
Who wins?
So Bruno is 10-0.
All 10 fights he's finished as well.
Right, 7 KOs, 3 submissions.
4 straight first round KOs. So this dude comes to fucking fight.
Right. He's 2-0 in the UFC. As Christian said, 5 last fights were all KOs.
4 last fights.
Oh yeah, 4 of his last fights, sorry. Listen. This is crazy to me. So, Black Ruziboev, he's 29.
29.
He has fought 42 total times.
No, this is his 47th total fight.
Oh, I'm sorry, 42 professional.
No, professional as well.
Really? Okay.
47. But his first in the UFC.
29 years old.
29 years old. Dude, he has 12 KOs. That's more wins than Bruno Ferreira. He has 20 submission wins. That's double Bruno Ferreira's total wins. But
He's
still,
had
none in the UFC.
He's had more stress than I've ever had to deal with.
And I said that Ferreira had 4 straight first round KOs. Black, he has 8 straight first round finishes, KOs and chokes.
Right, so let's take a look.
He's incredible.
Let's take a look at Black's finishes. He has 12 knockouts.
12 knockouts, 20 submissions.
20 submissions, right?
And
He
2
does
decisions.
have 2 draws.
And 2 no contests.
And 2 no contests. But listen, I think, honestly... Well, actually, what do you think first? I want to hear your take first.
I think both of these guys, they're new to the UFC. Obviously, one guy has 1 fight, one guy has 0 fights. They're both used to coming in, rushing their opponents, and dominating.
Yeah, a bunch of early finishes between the two.
Between the two of them. I think it could go either way. I'm going to go Ferreira just on the fact that he's at least fought in the UFC and we've seen him fight.
Okay.
With Black, you don't know who... You know, these are impressive numbers. You just don't know who he fought. But yeah, I got Ferreira.
Cool. So look, as we said on the last fight, you know, Black is coming into the UFC. You know, he hasn't faced a UFC opponent, so we don't know if there's levels to this. My gut feeling here is that this fight's going to get out of the first round, and I think that actually spells trouble for Bruno Ferreira, the Hulk. So my actual first bet of the night, which is rare for me, is on the first fight of the main card. I'm taking Nursultan Black Ruziboev money line. So that's going to be that, and he's also my pick of the night as well. I assume you're taking Bruno as your pick?
Yeah, I got Ferreira.
Cool. So this is going to be one we're differing on. I'm definitely excited to watch this one go down.
All right, next fight is Ishmael Moreta Bonfim versus Benoit, the God of War, Saint Denis. Ishmael comes in 19-3. Saint Denis 10-1. So these are both guys used to winning. Ishmael has 13 straight wins coming in. Saint Denis has 2 straight wins, but both finishes, a TKO and a sub. So he's a guy. He goes out there and tries to get the finishes. All of his last 4 wins, all by finish.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So you said Ishmael is 19-3. So breaking that down a little bit, 9 KOs. Do you know what Moretta means?
I do not.
Sledgehammer.
That's a great nickname.
Right. So it may not have been a great nickname on your professional debut, but when you're 19-3 with 9 KOs, it's like, all right.
He's got
The
got a
dude packs a
sledgehammer.
sledgehammer. Right. Benoit, God of War. So that's French. Or he's French, I should say. Obviously, God of War is English. I'm saying it in English. But God of War translates to Dieu de la guerre. Which,
Sounds better
listen
in
to it
French.
like this. Listen to it like this. So we have Ishmael Moreta Bonfim versus Benoit Dieu de la guerre Saint Denis.
Sounds
Right.
like a Coliseum fight.
Right. It sounds like somebody's dying in this fight today.
Fighting
So-
for our countries in here.
I think one of the reasons this matchup was made, first and foremost, is Bonfim's only losses have been to submissions.
And what does my boy have?
This dude's got 8 submission victories.
8 subs, 3 out of his last 4 wins are subs, dude.
So, I think straight up this is the only reason this fight is made. Not the only reason. I think this is the main reason the fight is made. I think it shows that there's going to be a huge difference in ability and combativeness. You know, you're going to have one who's aiming for a takedown, and you have one who's aiming for a knockout. The whole fight. I'm taking, for my pick of the week, just a kind of lock pick of the week for me, just is going to be Ishmael Bonfim.
See, I differ from you completely. I'm taking Saint Denis. I think he goes in there. He's not a guy that gets knocked out. His only loss is by decision. He's going to go in there. He's going to at some point, get an opportunity to get a sub, and he's going to get the submission. He's going to win the fight. It's also actually my first bet of the card, too. I have Saint Denis moneyline plus 260. And I kind of have an issue with Ishmael Bonfim. He knocked out my boy Terrence McKinney.
Not T-Rex.
Yeah, he had a brutal knocker out of my guy. So I'm off his train.
Moving on to a flyweight women's fight at 125 pounds. We have Ariana, Queen of Violence Lipski, versus Melissa Gatto. One of the big things for each of these two here, Ariana Lipski's coming in at 15-8. 6 KOs, 3 submissions, 6 decisions, which means she pretty much can win it anyway. With 8 losses, though, she's been knocked out 4 times. She's also been beaten by decision 4 times, which means to me that kind of anybody could win this fight.
Yeah, Lipski is 2-3 in her last 5, and she's alternated in her last 4. So she's gone loss, win, loss, win. That leads me to believe she may be due for a loss coming up.
Right. Melissa Gatto's record's 8-1. She's won 2 KOs, 4 submissions, 2 decisions. She's also had 2 draws. And she's only lost once by decision.
It's her last fight, too. So she's coming off of her first loss of her career. So really, it depends how she responds. Some people respond very well from their first loss. They use it motivating. Some people, the undefeated means a lot, and they lose it. Yeah. I think she's going to come out. I think she's going to perform probably the best she ever has. I got her winning this fight.
I actually took her winning this fight as well.
Okay, so the next fight's the 4th fight of the main card. Max Payne Griffin versus Michael Morales. Morales comes in 14-0 with 11 KOs. Max Payne 19-9. There's a big age difference here, too. Max Payne comes in 37 years old. Michael Morales, the undefeated Ecuadorian, only 23 years old. So this is the case. UFC does this sometimes where they have an up-and-coming guy, and they give him a test against, he may not be the most, I don't want to say not most talented fighter, but he's a vet, and he knows how to fight. He's going to give this guy a test.
Yeah. So, one thing I'll say about Max Payne Griffin as of late, he's been having some decisions. I don't know if that spells anything for, you know,
Last 3 fights, all decision.
right,
And he lost one of those.
the end of his career or anything. It does say one thing in benefit of him, I can say. He doesn't get finished. If he's losing, at least in his last three, he's losing by at least decision.
Well, you said it earlier. We said it earlier. He has 9 losses. 8
Right.
of those are by decision.
Correct.
So that speaks to that point.
So, when he's not getting finished, even though he's older, you can't count him out. Now, on this one, I will say, I think Michael Morales being younger, more agile. Listen, he's 14-0, 11 KO victories.
4 out of his last 5 are KOs, too.
Right. 1 submission, which means he can do it if he has to.
And this is his 3rd UFC fight. He's 2-0 right now.
Right. And no losses in his career. I think, and this is one of my picks, this is actually my kind of heavy favorite pick of the week, if you will. My pick and my bet, Michael Morales, money line.
I like that. I also have Michael Morales, not as my bet, but I do have him as the pick. I have him winning this fight.
So for UFC Vegas 76's co-main event, we have Damir Ismagulov versus Grant KGD Dawson. This is a 155-pound fight at lightweight. Listen, this is a tough one. Both guys' records are crazy. Ismagulov's record is 24-2, 12 KOs, 1 submission, 11 decisions. Grant
He's only
Dawson's
lost by decision, too. He's never gotten finished.
Right, he's only lost 2 decisions. Grant Dawson, on the other hand, is 19-1. He's got 4 KOs, 13 submissions, and 2 decisions. And listen, he's only lost by KO.
And Dawson, his 1 loss, but in the UFC, this is his 9th fight in the UFC. So he's 7 wins, 0 losses, 1 no contest, or 1 draw, I'm sorry. And 11 straight total wins. And his last 3 wins, all by finish. 2 subs, 1 KO.
Honestly, dude, even with the betting odds here, I don't know what you have. I got minus 120, plus 100. Damir being the favorite, or Ismagulov being the favorite. Dude, this being a toss-up here, honestly, I really don't know what I should do. I mean, you got on one side somebody winning by KOs predominantly, and then on the other side with Dawson, he's winning by submissions. Neither guy's losing, but somebody has to.
I got Dawson in the fight at plus 100. That's actually my second bet of the night as well. So that's my pick and my bet. I think Dawson just goes and gets it done. I think he actually finishes Ismagulov for the first time in Ismagulov's career. He gets finished.
Wow. Is this a 3-round or a 5-round?
This is a 3-round fight.
Okay, so on a 3-round fight, I don't expect anybody to be gassed at all. So because of that, and I like odds being, a little bit under, I'm going to take Grant Dawson as my final bet of the night, plus 100, and him as my pick for the co-main.
Okay, now we move on to the main event of the evening, the main event of UFC Vegas 76. Sean Strickland, Abbas Magomedov. Sean Strickland comes in 26-5. He did win his last fight. Before that, he did lose 2 in a row. Magomedov comes in 25-4. He's in the main event, and it's just his second UFC fight. He is 1-0 in the UFC. He's only had 1 fight. I looked this up. 1 fight since 2020. So this is his second fight in 3 years coming into this. Against Sean Strickland, who, he's a dog. You say what you want about him. He's a tough dude. He can fight.
Yeah, I think on this one we can chalk Magomedov's recent fight record to the pandemic as of late. Outside of that, I wholeheartedly believe he'd have been fighting in the past 3 years. But even though that's the case, I'm not counting this guy out. Listen, there's a reason, number one, they put him in a main event. But number 2, he's got 1 KO loss, 2 submission losses, sorry, and 1 decision loss.
Sean
All right?
Strickland's the king of decisions, though.
He is. Now, one thing I will say about Sean Tarzan Strickland. Now, I've never heard anyone call him that, but whatever. He gets into some scraps and he finds a way to win them. You know, he's not scared of getting hit in the face, and he's also not scared of talking shit.
Yeah, but I mean, it's come back to he lost Jared Cannonier decision. He got knocked the fuck out by Alex Pereira.
Right.
So if the way he fights, he can beat anybody. But if he runs into the wrong person, they could beat him. But I think Sean Strickland, he's my pick for this fight. I think he wins the fight, and he's actually my final bet. I got him at minus 165 when I put the bet in.
Oh,
So that's
nice.
my third bet of the week. I think Strickland, just the experience in the UFC, I still think he's a top 10 at his weight class. I think he gets it done.
Yeah. You know, I agree. While both fighters can probably win this, by any outcome, I think Strickland's probably the safer bet here. You know, he can knock you out. He's got viable submissions. We've already said he can just outlast you. You know, it's very hard to knock him out.
He can go the distance. You know that.
Right. I agree. I think I'm going to take Sean Strickland for the main event pick and, lock it in from there.
Cool. I think that wraps up the preview for UFC Vegas 76 this upcoming weekend. A lot of guys that are kind of up and coming. Not a lot of UFC experience, but they're exciting guys. I'm excited for the card.
Yeah, I think we see a bunch of guys, moving on up here. All right. So just to recap, we're calling this season 1. We're going to be doing picks for every fight, every week of every card. We're also going to be doing a minimum of 3 bets per card. So to kind of start everything off, last week, how'd you do, Christian?
So picks-wise, I think we both did pretty well. I think we both went 5-2, which isn't bad, especially for a fight night where a lot of the fighters, you've only seen a couple times.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with the 5-2.
Yeah, we lost the Magny versus Rowe fight. That was one of the picks we did. Rowe won by unanimous decision. No, I'm sorry. Rowe won by split decision, actually. By split decision. And what was the other one?
Onama Santos.
Yeah, so that was actually... We both thought Santos was going to secure a knockout. And Onama, while he got wobbled in the first, he knocked Santos clean out.
Yeah, I think that was knockout of the night. And that's one of those ones, like, I'm all right with losing that pick if that's how it's going to go.
Yeah, look, I'm kind of like when I go to the casino. I'm willing to go because it's entertainment while I'm there. Betting on that fight, or even picking that fight, it was entertainment while I was there. How'd you do on your bets?
So on the bets, I didn't do quite as well. I had 1 win and 2 losses.
Okay, well, look, it's early in the season. That's 33%. There's a lot of time to pick it up. I think we're going to run this so-called season through the end of December. Kind of wrap up 6 months, see what everything looks like, see what kind of percentages we lie at. This past week, I went 1-1-1. I won 1 bet. It was a favorite bet, so no big deal. I lost an underdog bet.
And then that eye poke.
And then I got an eye poke. But the good news on the eye poke is that was a voided bet, so we didn't lose anything there. Get to live to fight another day.
Not an L.
Not an L. That is called a dash, as far as I'm concerned.
All right, so week 2 of Who Would Wins. What do you have for me, Alex?
Okay, so social media was very, very kind to me for the first one. I didn't even really have to think about it. Number one, who would win? Elon Musk versus Mark Zuckerberg.
I think you already know my pick for this fight. There's only one dude in this that actually really trains, and that's Mark Zuckerberg. He has the size disadvantage, but his basic jiu-jitsu, he's more than basic at this point, I think, jiu-jitsu knowledge. I mean, against somebody that doesn't know, he's going to choke Elon Musk. It's not like Elon Musk is like Mr. Fitness.
I still think that Elon Musk before the fight is going to download like Terminator software into his brain chip and just dominate.
I think that's the best way you could win. Or like how Iron Man, and what was that, Civil War?
Yeah. Just
you could start recognizing the computer AI recognizes your
right. Oh, he's about to dodge.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Yeah. So I think that's an interesting number one. Elon Musk.
Zuck. I got
you have
Zuck.
Zuck? Okay. Let us know in the comments what you think. This is an interesting one because it's probably going to happen. It's currently rumored for UFC 300. So let us know what you think. Number two. This is another fight that may actually happen. Who would win? John Jones versus Francis Ngannou.
I think this is the fight everybody wants to see.
Man, this is the fight that I'd probably actually pay for the fight to see it.
And I like both guys, honestly. I think John Jones, he's just something Francis Ngannou's never handled, like never fought against before. He's that good. I think John Jones he would put up a bigger resistance than Cyril Gane did, but I think John Jones would eventually choke Francis Ngannou out.
Can you imagine Ngannou being choked out? Like,
I just want Ngannou unconscious?
No. Helpless. Can you imagine that man being helpless?
I can't imagine John Jones being helpless.
Right. That's an interesting one. You have John Jones?
100% John Jones.
Okay. Well, let me know what y'all think. Francis Ngannou versus John Jones.
Johnny Bones Jones.
Let me know in the comments. The last one. So this one's a little bit more obscure. So originally I had written down just like a normal everyday guy versus, random animal. But I want to change it up with a different kind of question. Up to what animal do you think you could win against?
Like, how many?
No. For instance, do you think you could beat, on a scale, like cat, dog, kangaroo, bear, elk, like a lion at the very, top of the food chain?
I think self-defense wise, I could take a kangaroo.
You think like a full-grown, like a male full-grown kangaroo?
I think if it was literally life and death, yes.
I think you're batshit fucking crazy.
Nah, you just don't stand in front of him. You get his back and you choke him out.
Okay.
You put your hooks in. You grab that neck. It's vulnerable. He has tiny little arms.
So that leads me into my new section, Delusions with Christian.
I'm making this kangaroo tap.
Okay. Yeah. Well, give me enough money and I promise you I will help you see that to fruition.
Sign me up. All right, so I think I got a new segment idea.
I like that.
Top 5. So it's going to be you rank your top 5 various UFC, MMA, sports, life categories, and we'll do a new one each week. We each pick 5.
Sweet. I got one question.
Go ahead.
Is that what top 5 means?
That is what top 5 means.
All right,
Believe it or not, despite what they say.
All right, just wanted to make sure I had a firm grasp on it.
So
all right, so what are we starting with?
So I think this week, a good first one, easy one to start with, your top 5 favorite UFC fights. So this isn't the best fights, not top 5 best fights. This is your personal top 5 favorite UFC fights, and I think we start at number 5 and go in order. Give our best one last.
Okay, so I gotta know. Are we saying all at once?
I think we go in order. I think we go each say our 5s, each say our 4s, and then
Okay,
go
cool.
from there.
Okay, cool.
And I think you should start off with your number 5 to start us off.
Can we have like an honorable mention after we do all of them?
Of course, of course.
Okay, cool.
Ones that just missed the cut.
All right. So my number 5. I don't know if it's expected or anything, but I think one of the most memorable, one of my most favorite UFC decisions of all time would be Weili Zhang versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Megamind is what I like to call that fight.
I have that in my rankings too, just not at number 5. But I love this fight.
That fight, dude, that was just, I mean, for you to have that much entertainment, she had so much swelling. It was ungodly. Like it scared me. I believe we watched that fight together, and it was terrifying.
It was to the point where it was concerning. You don't see that very often.
We never thought we'd see her fight again, and she did.
It was crazy though. Yeah, she looked like you said, Megamind.
Nuts. What's your number 5? If that's not your number 5?
So my number 5 is also a war, also a decision, but it's Israel Adesanya versus Kevin Gastelum. So this is probably Israel's only in the UFC, his only like back and forth where he took damage, he doled out damage without a finish. It was an all-in-out war. I think it won Fight of the Year. It came like second or third in Fight of the Year. It was a great fight.
Yeah, it's all too often that fights like that really leave your mark. And I'm kind of disappointed I didn't think about it.
It gave Adesanya his first belt. It was an interim belt at 185, but it was his first belt.
That's interesting. I'm disappointed I didn't think about that. Honestly,
it kind of put Israel on the map as like he's for real.
Yeah. No, I like that. My number 4. This one, I don't know if you remember. I'm sure, well, once I say it, I know you will. At UFC 218, there was an uppercut that shook the heavens. It was Francis Ngannou versus Alistair Overeem. A one-punch uppercut that sent him flying to the canvas. And then a crab hammer afterwards that almost
just a hammer.
ended the man's
Literally
life.
a sledgehammer on dude's unconscious face.
Right, if we're talking about the UFC Vegas 76, we're talking about a Moreta.
And this was one of the most violent, I love this fight, one of the most violent punch knockouts you'll ever see. I mean, it was like right on impact. Overeem was out. And Overeem at this point, he was a vet. Like, he's for real. He's always been a contender. And it was crazy. It was one of the, like I said, one of the most violent knockouts that I've ever seen.
That's one of those fights that every time I'm scrolling across Instagram or Facebook, every single time I see that fight, I hit a share. I hit the main page share. I send it to every friend I can think that likes fights. Some friends even who don't like fights. I send that to because you know what kind of reaction that gets? Man, that makes everybody say, "Oh my gosh."
That is one of those ones you can send to people that don't like fights, and even they're like, "Oh my," they know what just happened.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things that really helped cement that as my number 4. What you got?
So for my number 4, I got your number 5. I got Weili versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
However you say that.
However you say it. But everything you said, I'm going to piggyback off of that. It was a war. She became Megamind. One of the worst swellings, but she still was in there fighting. Weili, I think that fight made Weili one of the most beloved fighters in the UFC. Like, the fans love her.
Yeah. Listen, for a Chinese-born fighter, that's something that you never hear the UFC fans just backing wholeheartedly, and she has all the support.
And she's for real too.
Right? Yeah, she can bang.
All right, so who you got for number 3? Your number 3 favorite fight in the UFC.
Okay, so I don't really have a trend going yet, but the more I look at my 4 through 1, I see a very obvious trend as to why I like fights so much. So my number 3 fight is Tony Ferguson versus Justin Gaethje.
Just pure violence.
Just pure violence.
Almost one-sided.
UFC 249. Justin Gaethje, if that would have gone to decision, would have won 5 rounds to 0.
Do you remember that was the first card after COVID?
It was.
It was the first one, and it was in an empty. It wasn't at the Apex empty. It was in an empty, giant arena.
Right.
So you heard. I mean, it was crazy.
We heard commentary from the coaches. We heard every single punch landing. Now, one of the things I want to point out so much about that fight is that was a 5-round fight. Okay. That
should have been over in like the third.
Should have been over in the third. But Tony Ferguson does not give up. Listen, Justin Gaethje took him to the 5th round, pummeling him through and through, to the point where in the 5th round, a single jab caused Tony Ferguson's entire body to start nearly convulsing while standing.
It's like his body wanted to be knocked out, but his mind refused to let it. It was crazy. It was like a man fighting the knockout.
Right, so they called the fight. You know, Justin Gaethje won by KO due to punches.
It was a good standing stoppage.
And it was a great standing stoppage. Listen, when you're able to knock Tony Ferguson out in the 5th round of any fight, regardless of his age, both of those guys are dogs. There's nothing to take away from either one of them. Even with a loss, Tony Ferguson still is a force to be reckoned with.
He has lost like 5 fights in a row at this point.
Right, but it still doesn't matter. That's the crazy thing. He's one of those guys that will be able to fight for as long as he wants to fight. Not for as long as Dana, because we'll watch him lose every Saturday. Right? Wouldn't you?
I wouldn't go that far. I don't like seeing him lose.
Just to see him fight.
All right, so I got my number 3. This one is from here on out, it's kind of personal for me. So number 3, I have probably my favorite fighter, Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor 2. So this is when Poirier knocked Conor out. It's that famous meme of Conor knocked out on the ground with his bald head. I mean, it was just, Poirier's always been on the map. He's been in the UFC and been a top-level fighter for a while, but it really just like cemented him, I think, for people that aren't even fight fans because he beat Conor McGregor like that.
It almost reawakened him.
If I'm not mistaken, that's the first time somebody's knocked Conor McGregor out.
Definitely like that it was.
Yeah, it was great. He's one of my favorite fighters. I think even when he retires, you're probably going to look back and that's going to be like one of his best wins.
Yeah, anyone who can stop Conor McGregor, honestly, from what we've seen from Conor, at whatever point in his career, he's been a force. You know, to be able to stop him, regardless, you know, we're not talking leg injury. That's not a favorite fight for anybody. We're talking the KO punches where Poirier just bested him. Similar to how McGregor bested Poirier in 2016.
Exactly.
Right. So, and in that token, they were 1-1, and then, you know, Poirier won the second fight, or the third fight, if you will.
Yeah, then we don't need to recap the league.
By that. Right.
What you got for number 2?
Number 2 for me, I have the glorious Rocky head kick. UFC 278.
Edwards Usman?
Edwards Usman.
A great knockout.
Such a great fight. Listen, the whole fight through and through. Edwards was down. His coach was just beating on him.
But
You're going to lose it,
video.
Rock.
come on, Rocky.
Right, dude, listen.
Get your head out of your ass.
Anytime I need motivation, you know what I do? I YouTube, however you find that video. It's Rocky theme song, Leon Edwards, something like that.
With the Rocky theme song too.
Oh, you have to have that.
That'll get you going.
Listen, if I'm trying to ever work out, trying to ever go run, I need motivation, I put that on. Watching that knockout, watching the coaches pump Edwards up,
Gets the blood flowing.
it gets the people going. Okay? That is my second favorite fight of all time because Edwards truly overcomes adversity there. He was down all fight. It's one of those you gotta let your hands fly to get the knockout, and too often we see people know that they're down deep into the fight and not really do anything about it. This is one of those times where Edwards really took fate into his own hands.
All right, so for my number 2, this is one of the biggest events in UFC history. I have Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz 1. So this is when Nate Diaz, on short notice, came in, shocked the world. The famous line, "Surprise, motherfucker." I mean, this is one, if you go back and watch this, he slayed a giant. Conor McGregor, at this point, you got to think, he is looking almost invincible. He's looking like the second coming of Jesus, damn near. He's knocking everybody out. He looks like the man.
His left hand was God at that point.
It was God. And all of a sudden, he lands a few left hands, and Nate Diaz is still standing there with that look he has on his face.
And that point.
And it was just a matter of time. He was there. He outlasted him. It was in the second round. I thought it lasted longer. I went back and watched it. Second round. McGregor had spent everything he had. Diaz got him to the ground, got his back, got the choke. It's one of the most iconic moments in UFC history. It's just a great fight, and it's a great one to go back and watch again.
It really is, dude. Listen, we're not one to just go post our favorite fights on social media left and right, but we'd probably have a million followers if that's all we did. That fight, that honestly is probably most people's second favorite fight of all time.
It's just a great fight, and I think it honestly got a lot of people at the time into the UFC.
Right. I mean, you see how big of a name Conor is.
I mean, Nate Diaz too.
Right.
He's choking out Logan Paul lookalikes in New Orleans
for free
on Bourbon Street and dropping that dude on his head.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. He doesn't even care.
Don't threaten him anymore.
So that put a different stamp on everybody's emotions with Nate Diaz and Conor. It proved that Conor could be moved. It also proved that Nate wasn't going down without a fight.
All right, so who do you have as your number 1 most favoritist, I know how I sounded, UFC fight of all time? Who's number 1?
So my fandom took sheer control on this one.
Mine did as well, so don't feel bad.
Okay, cool. So I think that kind of that's kind of what makes your favorite fight, though. You know, or your favorite anything is your fandom. My favorite fight is someone that hits close to home, literally. You know, Dustin Poirier from Louisiana, shout out where we're from, versus Conor McGregor. Honestly, the KO punches on UFC 257, I think your third fight.
Yeah, that was my number 3.
Yeah, that fight for me,
it was such a great moment.
Dude, we're sitting in a house watching one of the biggest names in UFC history. You know what? Never mind. We're watching one of the biggest names in fight history, right? And we're watching a guy that grew up 15 minutes from us.
I mean, we go play golf right by where he's from all the time.
Right. So, just to see that guy beat, one of the highest profile fighters of all time.
By far, the highest profile MMA fighter of all time, 100%.
Absolutely. That to me was just, it was amazing. Watching it happen, I remember jumping up and down. I didn't care if we woke up my child who was sleeping that night.
Yeah,
there were screams. I didn't care what happened right then in that moment. It was electricity. And in moments like that, it's how Swifties take the Taylor Swift concert, the Eras tour, right? They wouldn't trade that for anything. And to be able to see that, if I could have seen that live,
that's why you watch the fights, is for moments like that.
right? To be able to glimpse any part of that history is what it's for.
All right, so my number one out of my top 5 favorite fights, I also win a homer pick. It's a Dustin Poirier fight, but it's against probably my second favorite fighter, Max Holloway. So I put Poirier Holloway 2. This is the one Poirier got his interim belt. 155 Max moved up. It was actually the same night as one of my other picks, Gastelum Adesanya. It was an all-out 5-round war. Both dudes bloodied up. Both dudes boxing, back and forth. It was just like a pure MMA. Both dudes talking shit, but like a good nature talk shit.
Respecting talking.
Respecting talking shit.
Right.
And it was just a great fight.
I remember that one. That's a solid fight.
They were even going back to their corners, and Poirier stood up and talked shit.
They wouldn't sit.
And Holloway said, "Fuck my stool," and he stood up too, and it was just fucking awesome.
Yeah, they did the whole pointing on the ring thing, and they're saying they're gonna walk into the center, and they're gonna box this fight out.
And they did, and it was just a great fight.
And Poirier, what did Poirier remind everyone how Poirier did? Because I know.
I believe it was a split decision.
It was.
Yeah, it was a split decision. It was a close fight.
That's so one of those.
It was a great fight.
One of those things is where the name of the podcast comes from. It's all the challenges and the adversity. It's all the differences. Not everybody's thinking the same way. And you can win by split decision.
But yeah, that's my number one fight. I mean, it was just everything I love about MMA and my two probably favorite fighters.
I like it.
So do you have any honorable mentions that just missed your list?
So there's probably like 1,000 if I really wrote the list.
It's fair enough. I wrote about 30 down, and it was very tough to narrow it down.
Right. If I was gonna point any total out, any one fight, like honorable mention, number 6 if I had to do it. And one of my things with me being crazy is like in my top 5, I didn't want I didn't want repeating fighters. So that's one of the reasons that this one didn't make the cut, just because Usman was in a different fight that was just crazy. My honorable mention is going to be Usman Masvidal, UFC 261, where in the second round he just flatlined Masvidal.
That one hurts for me because I love Jorge Masvidal.
I love them both.
I'm actually wearing a Jorge Masvidal shirt as we speak.
Game bread. Yeah, it was a great fight. It was one of those like picture perfect moments. Like the sweat plumed. It was just he was a goner. It was similar to how he KO'd Askren once upon a time, and that that's beautiful in its own right.
See, I actually have 2 honorable mentions. I have Gilbert Burns, Khamzat Chimaev. This was a 3-round war. It was the first time Khamzat, literally he came into that fight, he'd only gotten hit in like 4 times. And it was just an all-out war. Showed his toughness, showed how good Gilbert Burns is. It could have gone either way. It went to Khamzat. I love that fight. And then I also have to mention Jorge Masvidal, Darren Till. He went to England, knocked Darren Till out, and that's also when he had the famous where he punched Leon Edwards backstage, 3-piece in a soda. That happened after that fight, so I got to throw that out there.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That was That was a violent time for the UFC.
Great times.
Yeah. So to wrap this episode up, I just want to throw out a few weird, very weird facts that I found across the internet over the past couple days. Number one, banging your head against the wall will actually lose you up to 150 calories an hour. Now, what they don't say is if you do it for long enough, your lifespan's going to be pretty short.
I was about to say, what's the trade-off in brain cells?
Yeah. So one of those. You got anything to say to that?
What's the trade-off in brain cells?
That's what I figured it was going to be. All right, so number two. This was weird. It didn't quite blow my mind. It was just weird. So most toilet paper for home use, so if you go to the grocery store, buy a thing of Cottonelle. If you do that in France, most of it sold for home use is actually pink.
Is there a reason?
No. I thought it was probably so they could tell their hemorrhoids.
Do they dye
It was
it
probably
pink?
so they couldn't tell their hemorrhoids are acting up.
Do they dye it pink?
No, I'm sure they dye it pink.
Huh.
All right. Lastly, so this one actually blew my mind, and I'll tell you, I spent the 2 hours last night watching this. So in 2013, the movie Toy Story was remade using real toys and real people. It's on YouTube. It's got 49 million views. And at this point, it's over a decade old. So that one may not be as weird, but...
Is it shot for shot the same movie?
I watched it last night. It is shot for shot with dialogue, the same movie. Check it out on YouTube. It's got 49 million views. It's been posted for 10 years. It's crazy.
That might be worth a watch.
Thanks for listening to Split Decision Episode 2. Check us out at splitdecision.blog to access our socials, recent blog posts, and more.